Good morning, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from Mason Works Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone. And I am so excited to talk to Scott Taylor again. Hi, Scott.
Hey there, Kathy. I'm so glad that you invited me. Have been really looking forward to this.
Yeah. Well, I want everyone to know a lot about you. If they've never seen us talk before, or if you are new to their worldview, about how much what you do could help them. As we're going through this chaotic time, we really have the need to be able to go in and to really be able to control our thoughts and get to the core of who we are. And most of your work is about that. So Scott, why don't we start with, first of all, if you want to start with how you got into knowing about this information, which I think is a near death, combined, or what do they call that? Combined?
Close. It's a shared death experience.
Shared death experience. Thank you. So please
Sure.
share.
Yeah. Why don't I tell my story? That's always kind of an interesting thing. And I think it helps explain where I come from. So it happened in 1981. I was in love with a woman. Her name was Mary Frances Randall. And she and her son, Nolan, who had just turned 7, were coming back from the lake. They'd been out sailing and had a beautiful day. And on the way home, they were involved in this horrific car accident. And Mary Fran was killed outright. And Nolan sustained a mortal head wound. And it took him 6 days to make his transition. That winds up being important because they airlifted the two of them right over to Rochester, Mayo. And so they received the best health care in the world. And it allowed time for the family to gather. Mary Fran was one of 9. And so there was, time for all of the brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and grandparents and friends and neighbors to come and converge and hold vigil for Nolan. And that's just her side of the family. And then there's my family there too. So there's quite a bit of us that were there. And the way it worked is that Nolan was in a rather small room, and he was surrounded by these monitors that were, checking in on all of his vital functions. And because the room was small and it was filled with equipment, we divvied it up and said, only 2 people per 2 hours, and then we'd switch out. And as it turns out, my shift was from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning of the 6th day. And I was there with Mary Fran's oldest sister, Jeannie. And we'd gone into the room and had been prepped ahead of time by the lead nurse on the floor that it was really important that we talk to Nolan, and that he was in a persistent coma. He had never attained consciousness past the accident, but she was explaining to us that the last sensation to go is the sense of hearing. And so he could probably hear us, and he was unable to respond to our whatever we were going on. So we came prepared for that. And we brought in stories, and we read him stories about, his favorite comic book characters and his favorite books that he had. And we told him stories about his uncles who had gone throughout the Mayo health system and swiped all the cushions off the couch. So they have a place to lie down in the in the waiting room. And then it gets to be about 4:45 in the morning, and Janny, who is a trained emergency room nurse, goes to the end of the bed, looks at his chart, looks at all the monitors, and says, "Scott, it's time. It's time for us to say goodbye." And so we pulled up a couple of chairs next to his head, and we told him how much we loved him, how much we were, how proud we were of him, because he had fought for 6 days to be with us here in the physical world. And then Janny made this wonderful suggestion to him, which was that if his mother should come, remembering that she died 6 days before, that if Mary Fran should come for him and pick him up and ask him to go with her, that that would be the right thing to do. That if his mother should come, he should go with her. And we affirmed our love for him and how proud we were of him. And then our shift was over. Next crew came in. Well, it's about 45 minutes later, and the head nurse comes into the waiting room and wakes us all up and says that his vital signs were decreasing, on a real steady basis, and that the end was going to be soon. So this whole raft of us, and I have no idea, there were at least 40 of us and maybe more. We all file into this little hospital room. And as luck would have it, I was one of the last people in the room, and it was already 4 deep around the bed. And so I just wound up sitting on the windowsill. And as the monitors, were fluctuating, it was clear that there was this downward spiral, and his heartbeat just got slower and slower and slower, and eventually it just flatlined. And when Nolan flatlined, what I experienced was Mary Fran coming across the veil and coming up to her son and scooping him up out of his physical body. And they had this exquisite reunion that you could only imagine between a mother and child. And then I was surprised at that, because I got to feel what it is that they were feeling. And then what surprised me even more, Kathy, was that they turned to me, came over, embraced me, and then the three of us left and went to the light. And when I entered into the light, it was the most extraordinary experience that I could possibly have imagined. It was like I was just bathed in the love of the universe, that there was this extraordinary connection between me and all things. It was compassion and gratefulness, and it was beyond anything that I could begin to articulate clearly, because I'm having a hard time getting the words out. But what wound up being extraordinary was that was going on, but really my attention wasn't on that. My attention was on the fact that there were the three of us, and we had a chance to communicate with one another, and we affirmed our love and connection for each other. We had a chance to say a proper goodbye, which that was important to me, because I was at work when the accident happened, so I was nowhere near the scene. And then the three of us had a chance just to be together in that light, communicating to each other. And then at one point it was over. It was not over like, see you later, Scott. It was more like it was complete, that we did what we needed to do, and it was all good. And so the two of them turned and went further into the light, and I came back to my physical body sitting there on the windowsill. So Kathy, that's part A of the story. Do you have any questions, or should I just keep going on?
Well, so you're sitting in the room, there's a whole bunch of people in the room. You've just had this out of body experience. that had you had anything like that before through meditation or?
No, I grew up in the Presbyterian tradition in southern Minnesota, mainline Protestant, just nothing extraordinary in the spiritual realm had really happened to me up until that time.
Okay.
So it, to your point, it was really outside of my experience.
Right.
I hadn't. I've had 40 years to think about this and to be able to articulate what happened to me. I couldn't have done that then.
Right.
The researchers in this field would say, the number one characteristic of near-death experiences and shared death experiences is that they're ineffable, which is this great English word that means we don't have a good English word for it. And that is the truth. I am explaining this the best way that I possibly can, and every word I say is true, and it's not exactly the way it happened.
I understand. Well, it's because this isn't this comes through your brain, and all of this is through your heart. So the frequency is palpable for those of us that can feel. So it's beautiful. So you're in this room and you're saying, did you tell anybody right away, or what were you just like knocked out of your socks at that point?
Well, all right. So now we're into part B of the story.
Okay.
Thank you for that segue. It was perfect. So I'm sitting there on this windowsill, and I had just been in the light with Mary, Fran, and Nolan, come back to my physical body. But the part that I haven't talked about was I was fully present with Mary, Fran, and Nolan in the light. And I was fully present in the room with the other relatives and friends. I had consciousness in the light, and I had 100% consciousness in the room. So I didn't have a word for it then. I do now. I say it's by location. I was in two separate places at once. And it wasn't as if it's like 50 here and 50 here. It was, I was all the way there, and I was all the way in the room. And I know this because I'm sitting there on this windowsill, and I'm having this experience, and it's like the light of the universe is trying to break out of my physical body. And my face is just showing this joy, this ecstasy, this love just wants to burst forth. And it was entirely inappropriate for the room. If anybody had looked at me, they would have seen this, amazing grin and happiness and joy. And just moments before, we lost Nolan, and 6 days before, we lost Mary Fran. So it didn't fit. So the only thing I could think of to do was to cover my face with my hands. And I stayed in that pose until the two parts of me were reunited, and I could settle myself into being in my physical body again. And then I was able to lower my hands and be in the room with the other grieving relatives and do what you do then. You cry, you hug, you express your grief in whatever way was appropriate. And the room was filled with that. So it took me a second. Well, more than that, but it took a while for me to get together and then be able to participate.
Wow. So you're in the room, you come back, and then you have this integration. You're integrated, but you're curious about what really happened. Was that real? Did I really experience it? Can I still connect with them? Did you feel like you could still connect with them afterwards?
Absolutely.
Cool.
But there was no question in my mind. So the thinking went like this. I really wanted to touch base with them again. And because I had done it once, I knew with every fiber of my being that if I had been with them once in this place, that I could do it again. I just had to figure out how. And that was a decade-long search for how to enter into that space, frankly, without having a near-death experience with all the physical trauma. I do not recommend that.
Yeah.
Really a bad idea.
Yeah.
And there really wasn't any literature out there about shared death experiences. As far as I knew, frankly, I didn't know what really had happened. It was so outside my experience and outside my vocabulary that it took a while before I could find people who were talking about this and to be able to wrap words around my experience. And, thank you, PMH Atwater. She was the first one who had written in a book. And so she called it a shared near-death experience, or an empathetic near-death experience. And those were the words that caught my attention. And she described it just exactly like I had experienced it. So I knew that this thing was real. And then it got proved to me about 15 years later. I can jump into that real quick if you want.
Sure. Well, let's segue a little bit, because want people to know that, okay, so you had this experience and then you go on a search to find how to validate it or to learn how to do it again, because it happened without your willing it. But now you want to will it, right?
Now I want to will it. Exactly.
Yeah.
And frankly, the first thing I did was to say, all right, where could I get some extra juju to propel me into this space? And in my mind, that was, well, we have all these ancient sacred sites around the planet. Maybe there's some extra juice there that will, help me move into that space. So I went to, Stonehenge and the Sphinx and the Great Pyramids, and I went to Machu Picchu and the Oracle of Delphi, and I went to more cathedrals than you could shake a stick at. And essentially what happened was crickets, just nothing. I wound up having a whole series of wonderful vacations. However, we did not meet that first criteria. So then I said, well, we got to do something more experiential. And so I studied with shamans in both North and South America. I started up taking meditation practices. I went to Japan to study with the Omoto religion for a little while. And again, I got glimpses of it, but it really wasn't until I went to the Monroe Institute, where they use binaural beats to assist in assist in entering into expanded states of awareness, so that you could enter into and hold these really magnificent states. And that allowed me to communicate with Mary and Fran and Nolan for the first time and establish a relationship with them that I have to this day, and have the ability to talk to, other people who've made their transition, those who are friends or just plain interesting people.
Okay, so I have a question though. How is this different? The work that you've done, and we definitely want to talk a little bit more about Monroe for people that don't know anything about it. I've been using the work for 25 years, I think, and I started out using it because I was trying to focus and concentrate. I was working for Arthur Andersen, running a division of Arthur Andersen, and we were placed on site, and you didn't have an office, you just got a table, and you're putting together a $300,000 project, and there's all this stuff around you. So I got into all of this stuff with accelerated learning, and focus. And it works so well. It's like I still use it. I use concentration from.
Isn't that wonderful?
Oh yeah, I used it yesterday.
Yeah. So when I did my doctoral degree, same sort of thing. You have life happens, but at some point you actually have to read the book and write the papers. And I did the same thing. I would put on a concentration album, low in the background, and it would just help me to focus and to
Yeah.
sit there in the chair and actually get the task done, which is a lovely thing about binaural beats, is that you can mix them in different ways in order to achieve different results. Like you did and I did, we used the concentration one. And sometimes when, I've had a really busy day and I'm all wired up, I'll put on the one that helps you relax and go into deep sleep. That's just a terrific benefit. And then there's the expanded awareness ones that allow us to enter into different states of consciousness that make it easier to do certain types of things when you're out there. And so, that's in the repertoire. And as you noted, I was a facilitator for the Monroe Institute for 35 years, and then ran the organization for 2 years during the pandemic. And so, yeah, we can talk about binaural beats all day long. They're terrific. I highly encourage people to check them out. The Monroe Institute has a trade name that they use. It's called HemiSync. The generic term is binaural beats, because now there are many firms out there that have binaural beats. Some are better than others.
Yes.
And so, it's like what works for you. And a great place to start is with the HemiSync brand, and then kind of experiment out from there to see, oh, this person can take me here or there or wherever. Yes.
Well, why don't we start looking at your site now and show what you created? Because from your perspective of knowing that not only did you want to have a more full and productive life here, so some of those binaural beats or sound healing or whatever you want to call it, for people that don't have any clue what we're talking about, this is background music or headphone music that allows you to go to different states. It allows you to access different parts of your brain and function at a high capacity, learning new languages, writing books, all of these things. But what Scott did was he helped so many people. And this isn't necessarily for mediumship. This is for connection, correct?
Mediumship is a byproduct, but yes, the whole idea behind my work is that these states that are visited by near-death experiencers or shared death experiencers, either or, are accessible to us through meditation. And some of the blends of binaural beats are really good for allowing us to enter into certain specific states. So I have 6 albums, and Kathy's showing them right there. The first one that's listed is called Into the Light, and the whole series is called Into the Light, and the first one is with near-death meditations. And so I actually recommend that one towards the end as kind of some advanced concepts. The one I really like to have people start with is to get a hold of your guides, because guides are really important. They're really helpful in navigating the non-physical realms. And then there's exercises about heart energy, and there's exercises in black light energy. So people, when they visit or they have near-death experiences, very often they'll be in one of 3 lights. There's the white light at the end of the tunnel, there's black light of source, and there's the clear light which is heart energy. That's actually the one that happened to me. So I have an album for each one of those. And then going to the light and communicating with relatives and friends. That's that very first album. And then you'll love this, Kathy. After I had my first album out there, I had all kinds of people who wrote to me and said, Scott, you have a great album. But, after we've done it like 5, 6, 10 times, I know where you're going to go. Is it possible for you to stop yakking in my ear? and so there's one album that is just the tones.
Oh, okay.
And so people who know what to do, they've done my album enough times that they go, oh, I know where, I can do this on my own. Well, yeah, absolutely. And so, boom, they can listen to them and put them in that. They can just have an adventure on their own. And on the website, I have them listed in what order I'd recommend that you do them. You don't have to. That's just my suggestion. The point is that, pick one that resonates with you. That's probably the right one to start with. And it comes with a really extensive book on how to do binaural beat meditations and what makes them more effective and how you overcome obstacles that you might run into. And essentially my advice is just relax and let the album do the work. You don't have to do anything.
Well, what's cool, I think I have this one. I think I got it at an IANDS conference. And it comes in Spanish, Japanese, and Italian. So
isn't that fun? Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So, and the people that are doing this, are there people that have had an experience and they want to recapture it, or is it curiosity seekers? Do you have a general idea of who's buying these?
Yeah, and your first instinct is right. There's a large chunk of people who've had some sort of spiritually transformative experience, and they want to go back there again. And these albums are perfect for that. There are people who are just frankly, they've read about near-death experiences and shared death experiences, and they're going, I'd like me some of that. And these albums are perfect for that, because I can take you at a beginner level and move you through so that you can discover how to navigate the non-physical world on your own. And then there are folks who are, and I'm particularly sensitive to this one, say a relative, like their spouse or a brother or sister or a son and daughter had a near-death experience, and they're trying their darndest to explain what happened to them, to their loved ones. And the loved ones are like, I understand what you're telling me, Kathy, but, I just don't get it. Yeah. So this allows them to be able to touch into that space so they can go, oh my word, the love that is available to us through these meditative techniques is extraordinary. So I can see why you came back changed and how you now view the world differently than you did before. And what we're doing here in this physical world, how it's not really aligned with our true nature and yada, yada, yada. So there's lots of folks that just want to help, and they want to understand, and they want to do it through experience as opposed to, doing it through reading. So that's where I come in.
Well, I think the other part of this that people should know is that it's, you can regulate it yourself, versus when you have a spiritually transformative experience or an NDE, which I definitely recommend a spiritually transformative experience instead, because it doesn't hurt your body. When you have that, the expanded view of everything comes and goes. Sometimes it's not under your control. if you come back with other sensitivities or superpowers, I call it. And so what happens is that by using a tool like this, you could actually regulate your experience, right?
Yeah. So I like to describe it like if you had a near death or shared death experience, very often it's like somebody has just in the middle of the night grabbed you, taken you outside, and thrown you into a deep end of the pool, and you didn't even know there was a pool. And so, here you are underwater, it's black, you don't know which end's up. This is an unfamiliar environment because you just woke up, and it's just everything about it is strange and unusual. And when you're doing meditation, it's entirely different. It's like, okay, we're going to put our toe into the shallow end of the water, and then we're going to wade out carefully, and then we're going to learn how to dog paddle, and then we're going to swim to the deep end, and we're going to learn to dive. And by the time you get to the deep end of the pool, you are ready, and you know what's coming, and you know how to navigate, you know how to metaphorically hold your breath and swim underwater, and how to communicate with others when you're there. It's an entirely different experience, and it makes it so much nicer because you get a chance to truly experience all that there is available out there. It's just not thrust upon you, and you get a chance to understand it and to have it be interactive. And there's just so many advantages.
Yes.
And and pair that with the advantages to meditation in general, which there are tons. So you get both. You're learning a very effective way of meditation, and you're learning to be in those spaces that are the spaces that near-death experiencers inhabit when they go there.
And it also gives people an idea of how much more they really are and how much more access we have when we're going through this chaotic change time right now. One of the best things you can do is call in your team and have support and see the big picture of things. And that's what I love about all of this. So, Scott, do you want me to go to events next, and then, or do you want to?
Just one comment, and then we'll go to events.
Okay.
There's this idea that, like being in this culture, it's like we're just reacting to what comes to us, and nothing could be further from the truth. And doing this kind of meditation, doing this kind of exploration of the non-physical, you begin to understand that we are in charge of our own energy, and our thoughts are energy. And so we can really navigate the physical world by becoming really aware of what energy we are holding, what thoughts we're putting out there. And as you were alluding to just a second ago, right now it's just crazy time politically, and the wars around the world and whatever. And there's nothing more powerful than us being in our own energy and exuding what it is that we would like to see out there. And because that's how the world works, it reacts to us as opposed to the other way around. And that is a huge learning.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. But when we can co-create a different world out of what we want to see rather than react to everything, because the reactions in fear and the creation is God expressed. So, right.
And that's one of the lovely things about this work, and that there are so many people out there who are learning this and are saying, I don't want this craziness. I don't want there to be war. I don't want our political system to be divisive. I want another model. And And so that's what they begin to exude because they're aware, and that's what happens around them. So
Yes.
I love it. Okay, let's move
Yeah,
to events.
well, and what we're hoping is that the truth of it is that when David Hawkins said that that if, or Stephen, was it David or Stephen? Anyway, said that one person vibrating at a high level can affect 100,000 people. So that's what a lot of this work and the near-death experiencers work is, to share that whole concept so that we are co-creating, right?
Right. Hang on 2 seconds because I have such a good thing to show you.
Oh, cool. Okay.
All right, I'm coming back.
Oh, great.
So as little as 10 years ago, 15 for sure, if you were to Google near-death experience, or frankly, if you were just to Google death, give me an image of death, what you would get would be this image.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the, I'm sorry, it's air.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? This is, so it's that image of a robed figure with a sigh, and everything about it is mean and nasty and capricious, and death is a terrible thing and it must be avoided at all costs. Then along comes IANDS, along comes Monroe, along comes people like myself who said, you know, that's just not what death is about. Death has, it's more like what happened with Mary Fran and I and Nolan. You know, it's this tremendous entering into the light and love. And over time, if you now Google it, what you get is this image, which is the light at the end of the tunnel. And that image is about hope. It's about returning home. It's about being a part of something that is so loving and large. And that loving energy is the source of all creation. It has totally transformed how we think about death and dying. I mean, even Harry Potter had a near-death experience, you know. And he went up and he, you know, had conversations with his old mentor, Dumbledore, and he found out things he couldn't possibly have known. And he came back with this renewed sense of hope, and that he was able to, you know, take on Voldemort, and ta-da, we all know how that ended. So just the fact that there are people like IANDS and people like the University of Virginia and the Monroe and the Expanded Awareness Institute, everybody working together to say, there is another way. There's another way to frame what death is. And it has really caught on. And so now when you Google, you know, the images of death, that's what comes up. The light at the end of the tunnel is now the image for our Western culture, for what will happen to us when we make that transition. It's a remarkable change that has taken, you know, at the longest 50 years, but certainly in the last 15 as things have caught on, and, you know, a little steamroller effect there. So
yeah, I think IANDS has done a remarkable job. The past conferences that have gone on, so those, one of them that we've entitled it "You Don't Die." You don't die. And it's like, whoa, where did that come from? So there's so many things that are wonderful about all of this work, because it is personal development. There isn't, I mean, you could categorize it more spiritual development, but it isn't. It's holistic. It affects every aspect of your consciousness and how you walk in the world. And I just want as many people as possible to have that experience, because once you do, you realize how precious every single human is here. how kindness is really our natural state, kindness and love, and the self-talk and the self-criticism is yours alone. When you go to the next level, the next portal, there's no one there judging you. It's all you, judging yourself. And once you realize that, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'll do better then. But it also makes you walk through the world much kinder to yourself, kinder to everyone, even the grocery store clerk, because you are connected to all of them. And it's a blessing to be here. People forgot. We forgot. We thought this was a learning school and it was hard to get a good grade and all of that. But it isn't that at all, is it?
No, this is a school that we signed up for. I mean, this wasn't an accident that we came here. And, this is unique in the non-physical world because, here we have contrast, and we call that duality. And in duality, things look very different, and we have to take on a particular mindset in order to enter and be in this physical world. But that's not the nature of the non-physical world. The non-physical world is unity, and it is based on loving consciousness. That's it. That's all there is in the ultimate nature of the universe is loving consciousness. And so all of this, well, you talked about it, Kathy, all this fear and angst and anxiety and yada, yada that comes with being in the physical world, that helps us to see what the flip side is and how we can not accept that and live a life of kindness and generosity and sharing and community. It's a different way to be, and it's more consistent with the ultimate nature of the universe.
Perfect.
So, yes.
Yes. Well, we're not victims. I mean, we may have a storyline or a lesson we wanted to learn. So there are those things, but look at what happened with you by having a shared near-death experience change your trajectory. And you would never have found the Monroe Institute and done all that work with them and gotten your PhD and all of that. I mean, you have to know that in hindsight, everything seems to work out remarkably.
And after a while, you begin to realize the gifts that people give you as a result of being here in this physical world. I mean, it was incredibly painful to lose Mary Fran and Nolan, but they signed up for it too. They gave the gift to me. They gave the gift to the family and to many other people. So it's a different way to look at life. And when you put it against the backdrop of there being no time, whether you're here for moments or you're here for 100 years, all of it is a gift to ourselves and to the people that we run into.
That's so perfect. So next, do you want me to show your events real quick, and then we'll go to the
Sure, and then we'll talk about the IANDS conference.
Yeah.
Because now we're really fun. Okay, so on my website, there's an events tab that's way to the right, and in it, it's hard to see it here, but it lists the kinds of classes that are coming up. And I'm currently teaching for the Shift Network, terrific organization. They give a ton of value for the kind of teaching that's involved. You can, and if you can experiment with a class, and if it's not right for you, you can drop out. And I mean, they are a really good manager of the online environment. And excuse me, we have two different classes. So the first series is about bilocation and the near-death experience. So it's what I told you about, what happened to me. And we take that, and in 25 separate classes, we march you through the whole skill set that's involved with entering into the non-physical environment. And then in the class that I'm teaching now, that's about how to really embrace all of those superpowers you were talking about. It's like, how do you bring those back into the physical world and make your life here filled with more peace and joy? And that's another whole skill set. That first set is about going and exploring the non-physical. This class is about taking those skills that you learned in the non-physical and bringing them here into the physical world. And frankly, Kathy, it's just more fun than one person should have.
Oh, wonderful. So I want to make sure everyone knows to go to your website, which is neardeathmeditations.com, and it is in the contact information in the description, and want to make sure that people take advantage of all the benefits of the consciousness expansion that's available right now, and the importance of it right now too, especially during the lockdown and this past 4 years. There's been a lot of people that have left that aren't here in physical, and you can still connect with them. They're just in a different physical realm, but they're assuming most of them didn't totally go back into physical as enlightened masters, but so there's still so much that you can learn and grow and not feel so alone, because that's usually the issue here, is you do feel alone and disenfranchised, but this will give you a whole different way of looking at your life, right?
Yeah, and it helps heal, because like my wife's best friend died of COVID. My father and my great aunt died of COVID. And with that comes a lot of sorrow, because you're feeling like this didn't need to happen.
Right.
But it did. And so how do we repair that? And you can do that by contacting them, frankly, having a conversation, how you doing, Marisa? And you go, oh, she's fine. She's great. And, my dad's up there playing cards with his buddies. It's just to be able to visit and touch base with them and go, yep, it's all good. It's all good. It helps heal the loss of the physical person.
Well, I started studying. My father died when I was 21, but he really started dying when I was 18, 19 years old. So I started studying death and reincarnation early in college. And so I was so thrilled when I came across all of these expansive viewpoints of ways to and I just keep calling it expansive, because that's really the way I see it, is that we are here and we're all so much more. And so it's been a huge healing point for me growing up. And so I recommend it to everyone. But each modality has a different way of doing it. I love what you're doing, Scott, because it's kind, it's soft, it's kind, it's gentle. You can regulate it. You can use this, your brain, that you're only using this much of your brain, and this allows you to possibly use more of it. So it's quite amazing science, really, the brain science.
And what I like about binaural beats is that you're not reliant on the headphones. I mean, you do it, I don't know, it takes me about 5-6 times when I listen to a frequency mix, and I go, oh, okay, I get it now. I get where they're taking me. And then I don't have to use the headphones anymore because the brain has this amazing ability to remember. And so all you have to do is remember what it felt like to be in that space, and you are there. And it's just wonderful.
Isn't that great? Okay, so now let's segue. We've got about 10 more minutes. Let's segue to part of the excitement that's going on at the end of August in Phoenix, and Scott has been on the board of IANDS, which is the International Association for Near-Death Studies, and we met there. He was wearing a kilt the first time I saw him, and I was surprised. But it is going to be really hot in Phoenix, so we'll have to see how much of that you can do. But Scott, why don't you talk about your? I know you already mentioned PMH Atwater, who's a dear. She wrote the book, the encyclopedia on near-death experiences. I think she's on her 22nd book anyway. But do you want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah. So Kathy, the reason that I wear a kilt at the conference, well, one is I'm co-MC with Debbie James.
Right.
And that means that it's our job to make sure that the conference moves and changes. And when you walk up on stage and you are wearing a kilt, people look and they go, oh, that's unusual. Maybe I should pay attention. And it works. And what I tell people is that if, I'm wearing this Scottish regalia because in my research, I have talked to thousands of people who have been killed and brought back to life again.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. We start the conference with a dad joke. So, which is really important because the IANDS conference is, part of it is really scientific. So if you need a little head stuff and you want to know the statistics and the latest research, there's a spot for you there at the conference. There's a little track of that scientific stuff. And at the same time, it is filled with joy and laughter and fun, and there's dancing and parties, and it's about the exuberance of being here in the physical world with people who get it. This is a conference where people come to really gain wisdom and insight. And as my mentor at Monroe used to tell me, Scott, this work is way too important to be taken seriously. Isn't that great?
It is.
And so what happens is that there's a whole group of people who are coming to the IANDS conference trying to solve the problem of how do I live with what I know? And there's, this whole raft of speakers that are there discussing different lenses from which to view this experience and how to live the experience here in the physical. So it really is a place of peace and joy for you. And for those of you who are nurses, there's CEUs, so that, that scientific stuff, that's all there. So you can really get, if you want to nerd out and do T-squared tests and look at statistics, have at it. But, what I would say is that this is where my tribe is. These are the people who understand the experience and truly understand what it is like to try to touch that loving consciousness and then bring it back into the physical world. And then how do you be here when you have this heart connection to the non-physical? So it's just so much fun to have all these people gather, and about half the people who attend these conferences have had a near-death or a shared death experience. And almost all of them will have a little name badge that says experiencer on it. And that's permission to say, hey, I'm an experiencer. If you want to ask me about my experience, I'd be delighted to tell you. And so, I mean, you could spend your whole time at the conference just interviewing people who've had near-death experiences and not even go to one speaker, and they're all terrific. So, I so it's it does head and it does heart.
Right.
Both of those are balanced really well at this conference. It's serious and it's fun.
Well, the thing is, you feel the energy. For anyone who's sensitive, who is an experiencer, people come back changed and do their best to live from that heart space. And so you walk into the conference, and it feels like home. It feels like you went back to that place where you were with your shared experience, or I had spiritually transformative experiences. I didn't have a near-death experience, but it's recognizable. It's palpable.
That's a great word for it. Yep.
Yeah. The other thing I want people to know is, if you can't go in person, and we're going to show the website in a second, if you can't go in person, there is the opportunity to buy an online ticket and get the recordings, or watch it while it's on, or get the recordings later. And I love the recordings. I've been a volunteer for 7 years, and I didn't get to see hardly any of it because I was working. And so I love those recordings. Who cares about Netflix? Go watch those at dinner time. And they're amazing. They're amazing. It's also a way for you to have the words, the mystical language to describe what happened, that is totally from here. So it's hard to have the correlation of this that reaches other people. But by going to these events or listening to their presentations, it's amazing. And in group, it's amplified. It is amplified. We find that comes through the recordings.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's when we're going to show you in a second, there's the main room, and then there's a whole series of tracks that are happening in breakout rooms. And like every conference, you go, I want to go to that one, and I want to go to that one, and they're at the same time.
Like, you could buy locate, but you won't be able to take notes in both of them.
Anyway, so with the recordings, you're able to, go to one and not the other, and then later go on. So on the website, which is easily accessible at IANDS.org, there's a big banner right on the front page. You just click on that, and it'll take you right here. And then, Kathy, if you could scroll down just a little bit.
Sure.
And okay, so that's the day before. So keep going.
Those are workshops.
Those are the workshops that happen the day before the conference. And then here's the first day of the conference, and keep scrolling. And the point is not for you to read this. The point is, look at all the activity that's going on there. And then there's lots of stuff that will happen in the evening. So there's movies and music presentations, and there's fundraising events. You can't go to a conference without doing a little fundraising. So it's there's lots and lots to do. So if we can flip to maybe the speaker page.
Okay.
And the reason I'm having Kathy do that is because as she scrolls through them, you'll see some of the most famous names that are in NDE research and shared death experience research, people who've had experiences. Yeah, just keep scrolling. Like right here, Suzanne Giesman. She's probably one of the most famous mediums in the whole world, and who's been tested and has a 90 some percentile success rate. She can explain it better than me. But the point is, just keep scrolling there.
And then Needham, where Johnny wrote.
Oh, yeah. She wrote, a best-selling book, and she's going to do a guided meditation workshop there. And she is frankly just a lovely soul, a lovely human being. And so there are hundreds of these presentations that have been vetted from, I forget, the last I heard was 650 applications to speak, and they took 100 and some. So, I mean, these have been vetted. Most of these speakers have been heard by other people. So, we get a sense that they're going to deliver their material well. And, and then there's that picture of me there. So, so
Well,
that the conference is going to take place, and it's going to happen on time, and that's my job.
Yeah. Well,
that's the role of the kilt. There we go.
You guys do a great job. And it's really, again, if people are interested, you can go to IANDS.org, or you can go to conference.IANDS.org, which I put also on this banner. I'll show it again, so that people you could actually get to know Scott a lot better and see what we're talking about, because I think once you're in this field of loving energy, it reinforces you on every level to be all you can be, and to really appreciate everything here. Right now, these times, we get a chance to choose how we show up. And this is just a remarkable group of people, hundreds of people that show up in pure love and light, wanting to make a difference, wanting to be in service to the change.
And, Kathy, one of the lovely things that happens as a result of this is that people come from all over the world. And so, I mean, yeah, there's a bunch of people from the United States, but there's other perspective, other cultures that lend their expertise and their worldview to the data and the stories. And I mean, I just did a quick look, and I mean, it's Japan, Norway, Canada, Netherlands, Great Britain, Jordan, Singapore, France, New Zealand, and Denmark were the ones I was able to pull off quickly to say, all these folks are coming that also enrich our experience and remind us that, there's not just one worldview here. There's lots of ways to look at this particular experience, and how we can take and manifest that loving consciousness into this world.
Yay! I just want to go like that. Well, I want to thank you again, Scott, for this, and thank you I know that's a lot of work what you're doing. Whatever outfit you wear is going to be fine. But it's a lot of work. It's a work of love, and you do such a great job, you and Debbie. And thank you so much for all your years of commitment to spreading the information that we're so much more powerful than we know, and there's so much yet to come as all of us expand into more of who we really are. So thank you so much, Scott. Really appreciate it.
Kathy, it's been a pleasure, and I have enjoyed our conversation immensely. And for all of you out there, I look forward to chit-chatting with you at the conference, and or online, either one. Great.
So, wonderful.
No matter what I'm dressed in. Yeah.
Oh, and Kathy Summerbus put love Scott Taylor. Yay. It's part of your fan clubs here. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Scott. Please go look at what Scott's offering and see if it can help you right now, because there's nothing better to do than this. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Mwah.